And welcome back to American Agenda. I'm Heather Childers. The White House, they were offering some guidance, like a handbook of sorts, on how to reopen schools safely. They were offering this to schools. However, reports say that the Department of Education's handbook that they were offering is in fact linked to a radical activist group called the Abolitionist Teaching Network. And that group wants teachers to create a safe and inclusive classroom by, quote, disrupting whiteness and other forms of oppression. And now this afternoon, after that negative backlash, the Biden administration backpedaling, saying that it was an error to promote that handbook. And now they insist that they do not endorse the group's teachings. Let's bring back in our panel to talk about this. So another bit of controversy when it comes to our schools and exactly what or what is not being taught to our students. Derek, I'll let you start off with this one.
Again, this whole CRT, they've defined it now as critical race theory. It's nonsense. And I keep saying it's nonsense. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. My son, Derek Jr., I said this before, his best friend is a guy by the name of Adam. He's a white kid, okay? They've been friends since middle school. And guys, I said this before, if critical race theory was taught the way they're trying or talking about teaching in schools, these kids would not be friends today. And I think we need to look at what they're talking about, this whole critical race theory, because it's the definition and it's the way that they're trying to teach it, that that all white people are bad and that blacks have been oppressed and we've been the victims. And that's just certainly not true.
Right. Whites are the oppressors and blacks are the victims. And in case there was any confusion on this group, the Abolitionist Teaching Network, the co-founder of the group, Bettina Love, was speaking about abolitionist teaching. Listen to what she said.
They're spirit murdering our babies. Yeah. Right. Every day you walk into the classroom with all of these things that OD and D have talked about, and it's on you. That murders your spirit daily. The way you set it up, not only do we not get to play, there are now structures and institutions and conditions that make sure that I can't play and my children's children can't play. Mm-hmm. So what we're asking for is to start over.
Jessie Jane, your response to that and her picture of the American education system.
Well, it's stunning to me that these people have elevated themselves to be the voice of what we call racial relations in this country. They are systematically basically destroying what decades of efforts that many people have contributed to. I don't need to quote Martin Luther King. We all know that in the 1960s that we made dramatic changes in this country. The 1964 Civil Rights Movement passed. We made efforts on voting. We made efforts against institutional racism. But now we have an advocation by Randy Weingarten, who's the head of the teachers union, that allows this to infiltrate the schools. What does this have to do with teaching our children the basics of reading, writing, science, technology? We are deteriorating in this country on the worldwide level. When you look at where we stand on education, we are no longer number 1, 2, we're not even in the top 10 in much of our mathematics and science and language skills. We are in the bottom sphere. We are nowhere near where we should be, and that's where our focus must be. We're going to see a dramatic effort by Americans to push back. Many Americans have pulled their children out of public schools. Many have decided to go with private schools, and many are homeschooling. What they have essentially done is waken up Americans to no longer trust public education. And that's a travesty because the foundation of public education is for all children.
Yeah, how we spoke with Christopher Rufo earlier about some of this, and he's been very outspoken in terms of CRT and brought it to people's attention across this country. And one of the things that he said is that the White House is starting to backtrack, but he thinks the White House is looking at the polls and looking ahead to 2022. What are your thoughts, Hal?
Oh, I'm sure they're looking at the polls. I mean, it's a racist ideology, and it's a money grab. It's a money hustle. I mean, they're using race to gain money from the government, to gain money from school systems. And this was put in there. The woman that it looks like did this was former San Diego superintendent that's part of the Biden administration that's tight with this group. And look, this is all a distraction again from the failure of the public school system in many cities like Baltimore, where you have 18% proficiency in math, or Atlanta, where you have 33% proficiency in math. And she's saying, well, it's racism that's causing this. Well, these school districts are run by black people. I mean, the school boards, the principals, the teachers, the kids. It's not systemic racism that's causing this. This is a problem in the community where there's not a value on education and there's not fathers in the home, and they don't want to talk about that. They want to say it's systemic racism, and that's the reason that they're not able to be proficient in math. And it's just ridiculous. And at the meantime, they're using kids as pawns to make money off of this ideology. And that's the saddest part, is that it's not about helping the kids. It's about making money and basically screaming racism where it doesn't make sense to scream it.
Yeah, Derek, I did want to go to you to wrap this up, though, because you were talking about your sons. You know, it's not just happening in the schools, though. This is going, you know, across, you know, individual companies are now doing this, and military working this into areas. The former Hasbro contractor, you know, the toy maker, there was this leaked out documentation that went to Project Veritas, I think, that said the company was teaching employees that kids as young as 4 have pro-white, anti-black bias. Your response to sum all this up?
It's so insane to me. And what kills me the most is where the CRT just all of a sudden came from. And it's gained all this momentum. And again, I go back to what Hal just said. It's a distraction because of how bad this agenda of this administration, how bad it's doing right now, as in terms of immigration. Our foreign policy is in the toilet right now, and then this COVID thing is still happening, and it's just awful what's happening and what's taking place in the United States in terms of Biden's agenda, and using this critical race theory to just, again, as a distraction, and to say that 3- and 4-year-olds understanding race, that is the biggest crop of, I can't curse on this station, that I've ever heard in my life, because race is taught. Yeah. You are not born racist. You are taught to be racist.
Yeah, you're born full of love. That's what we like to think. And then you learn everything else. Thank you so much, panel. Stand by, though.